So next presentation is just introducing Wowza to our existing user base that's here. Just to introduce them as a company and to introduce the software and talk about how we're going through this migration process of Helix to Wowza and what's involved in that, the nuts and bolts of it. Because actually most people that are here today are involved in the nuts and bolts of it and want to know. So Wowza, just as a show of hands, who's actually heard of Wowza? Who had heard of Wowza before? Okay, great. So it's at least half of the room, maybe more. Great. So most people that we tell that we're now hooked up with Wowza say, great, fantastic. And I'll go through all the reasons why in a sec, because it is a really cool technology on its own. So when you get Wowza as part of your upgrade to the version 4 of MEDIAL, you'll find that there's quite a lot of things that you can do with Wowza, and I'll run through those. But a lot of these things that you can do with Wowza, we're going to build into the product anyway in time, but you will see that it's a really cool bit of software, and there's lots and lots of things that you can do with it. It's a bit of a Swiss Army knife, really. So they've been in business since 2005, as it says here. They've got tens of thousands of customers. I mean, huge amount of customers. I don't remember exactly. I mean, I think it's hundreds of thousands of customers all over the world. They were effectively a competitor to who we were working with before. So Real Networks were producing the Helix server. The Helix server had been around for a long time. You're talking like 1999. And then Wowza came in as a kind of upstart, really. The Adobe server came in mainly to do Flash, and the Wowza one came in sort of to compete with the Adobe one, but as a result started competing with the Helix server, which was a multi-format server. And Wowza really were doing it for such a great price that ultimately it came to a point where I think it's realistically why Real Networks were considering whether they wanted to be in that market at all anymore. They've won tons and tons of awards. I mean, they put us to shame for sure, all these streaming media awards and editor's pick and all that sort of stuff. And they won the streaming media, Reader's Choice magazine, they just won the best media server as well. So you're in good hands in terms of the media server that's running MEDIAL. The Wowza Streaming Engine, as they call it now, so traditionally the Wowza media server, as I've always known it, was a very technical product. You would administer it all through kind of these little text files and mess about with it, and it was very techy, really. There was a lot of people out there that were arguably making quite a lot of money out of just editing text files and making things work. What's happened now is they put a really nice user interface on it and called it the Wowza Streaming Engine. So you'll find this is something that you can potentially access as part of your software package. You'll be able to go through this user interface and configure it to do lots of cool things as well. They've got all the blurb, they can scale up from websites to mission critical applications, all that sort of stuff. What it does, I mean, it's pretty much like most of the streaming servers that are out there, although lots of the things that it does are a lot easier than things that I've worked with in the past. You're talking about an input and an output, really. You can upload files to it through MEDIAL, or you can have an input that could be a source, as they'd describe it, like an encoder that you would be doing a live event through, let's say. And all the different protocols, all the different stuff that goes in is fine, and all the different playback devices that you could potentially play it back on all work as well. It has some cool things like NDVR, where you can kind of you can move within, you can do kind of like, DVR type streaming for TV type applications. It has DRM as well if you really want to protect your content. Lots of APIs. I mean, if you're into development and you want to play around with something, this is just endless possibilities, which is great for us as well, because realistically now we're working with something that is the industry standard, and it's very well supported, it's very well documented, and most of the things we want to do work pretty easily out of the box. So just to give you an example, one of the things that we were working with the Helix server was doing webcam capture, and we were basically writing it from scratch, which took forever. When we went over to Wowza, they just had an out-of-the-box application that did it, and we were just plugged into that and we were done. So it should enable us to do things a lot faster than what we could do before, because we were developing things from scratch. So some of the point here is lots of different inputs going in. It's delivering to all these different devices. It's sort of taken as read with most streaming servers anyway, but just to make that point. One of the things that you could do with it, I mean, just from my own knowledge of it as well, we have a lot of organizations that say, hey, I've got all these IP cameras up all over the place. I'd quite like to stream those out to different devices. You might have those in your building. You can do that with Wowza really easily. That was something that was very, very difficult to do with the Helix server, if not, well, not impossible, but tricky. Live streaming video is really, really super easy with Wowza, and I'll show that to you when we come onto the V4 presentation. What you'll find with the Wowza system as well is that whereas Helix was always a bit of a struggle to get it to work with all the different encoders, all the different people that make these live streaming boxes or encoders or whatever, they know that it's going to work with Wowza. So you'll find that whatever you've got, whatever bit of kit you've got, is generally going to work with Wowza. It's not going to be a struggle like it potentially would have been with Helix. So just out of interest, of the people that are here today, how many people have a kind of box of tricks that does live streaming? How many people know that they've got that box of tricks somewhere? Okay, cool. What has anybody, so I'm just trying to sort of survey what people have got. So what sort of things have people got? What manufacturers? So at the back, Gordon, what have you got? Do you know what you've got, manufacturer-wise? Yeah. Echo, which works with Wowza. And then it's Tim? Yeah, live stream. Oh, as in just a... Oh, you've got the box as well. Okay, right, cool. What have you got? Live stream box, okay. Has anybody got a new tech TriCaster? Has anybody got one of them? Yeah, but that's stream to live stream from that. Right, so the box that you're using is the new tech one, and then you're streaming to... We've got both TriCaster and the live stream boxes. We've got a mixture. Right, okay. I didn't know that. Yeah. Okay. Right, okay. Can't have everything. So, has anybody got anything else? We've got Teradek, yeah. That works with Wowza as well, yeah. Anything else? We go through Apple Mac as well, sometimes with Wirecast, yeah, works with Wowza, yeah. So all of these things work with Wowza. So when we come on to talk about live, it's quite an exciting subject really, because, you know, there's so many things that you can do with live events, and we're putting a lot of development effort into the live streaming side. And when I talk through the roadmap, I'll talk about all the things that we're doing on that side. I'll also show you today, it's actually on this slide here, the Wowza Go Coder. So this is a free application for your iPhone or your iPad or your Android device, and you can do live streaming from your phone, no problem, through MEDIAL. So when I do the demo of the live stream, I'll do it through my iPhone, and we'll stream live from here, from the room, and you'll see that working. And then we can archive off from that as well. So yeah, definitely check out the Go Coder. It's free as well. And then I've had this mentioned to me by a few people doing audio only, where they're doing Icecast or Shoutcast. Again, Wowza is compatible with that. So if you're doing kind of student radio or university radio, you can do that through Wowza as well, which is quite cool. And you can do audio-only streaming through this Go Coder application that I'll show later. So it's very, very versatile is the point that I'm trying to make. You're going to get a lot of value out of what you're getting. And as we progress with Wowza, we will build a lot of these things into the product so that you'll be able to do them through our user interface. Because these things typically are kind of, you know, definitely the left-hand side of this diagram here is all kind of, you know, it's stuff that's doable for sure, but it is still a little bit in the technical domain. But we want to make the setup of the live stream as easy as possible through our user interface, and I'll show you that later. This is what the Go Coder looks like. It's just, you know, it's very, very simple, easy to use, and I'll show it later. You can make adjustments to various bits and pieces. If you want to try and do a live stream, I can give you a demo account on our system and push a live stream up to ours, and you can see it working. I don't know why they've got a video of a windswept beach. It's probably not the best picture to have, is it? But there we go. And then another thing to mention about Wowza as well, I know one of the things that people talk about when they're talking about live events is they say they want something that's highly scalable. So with the MEDIAL system, what will happen is with our live streaming feature, at the moment you can stream live through MEDIAL, but it is one Wowza server at the end of the day. So it's going to be constrained by the output and potentially constrained by your outbound bandwidth as well. So one of the things that you can do already is this Wowza Streaming Cloud thing, where you can push it to their cloud-based service to do a live stream. What we want to do in the future with our live streaming feature is push a feed from MEDIAL to the streaming cloud. So that's coming. But if you want to do a live event at scale, this is a very cost-effective way of doing it. I'm not selling this service to you or anything like that. I'm just saying it's available and Wowza do it. And I've used it and it does work really, really nicely. And it's not expensive at all. It's a really nice way of doing it. So we'll be working with Wowza to integrate with this cloud thing as well, so that you could do a live event through MEDIAL and then broadcast it at scale through the streaming cloud. Because I do know that, you know, there's people that do graduation ceremonies and things like that, and they're always surprised by the amount of people that tune into it. You know, you would think that it's quite a bland event and people are going to tune in for a few seconds or whatever just to see, you know, Joe Bloggs or whatever get his scroll and his, what do you call it, mortar or whatever it is. But people do tune in for those things, and at scale as well. So as I mentioned earlier, this is the switch really. You're going from your Helix server to your Wowza Streaming Engine as part of the upgrade to V4. So if you want to upgrade to V4, I mean, we've sent out an email, but just get in touch with us, support@streaming.co.uk, and then we'll give you a date and schedule in to do the upgrade. It's something you can do yourself if you want to, but we're kind of doing it as an attended upgrade really, just to make doubly sure, because you know there's a few fiddly bits with it which I'll go through in just a second. So what does the migration process involve? This is the question that I've been asked about 200 times. So the first thing is pretty easy. You uninstall Helix Server and you install the Wowza Streaming Engine. The actual uninstall of the Helix Server is probably best done right at the end, from Dave having done it a few times. But that's what you're doing. You're installing one, uninstalling the other. The other thing that you're doing is when you run the update, you're getting a screen where you're having to plug in some information about the Wowza server. So in terms of where it's installed, the address that it's using, which will be the same address as your current Helix server, and then this thing called an API URL, but that's pre-populated anyway. How is it set up now in terms of host names or IPs or whichever way you want to term it? So at the moment we use the Microsoft IIS for our web server, and the two addresses for the front and the back end of the server are bound to IIS. So your media library might be called HTML something or whatever you've decided to call it. And then the back end of it is normally called HTML upload or upload.domain.edu or .ac.uk. So that's the current setup. And then the Helix server is normally bound to Streamer or Stream or Helix or whatever way you've done it. So that's currently how it's set up. Migrating, what happens is that we add an extra binding to IIS, because the Wowza streaming server, although it does lots of things very, very well, and in my opinion much better than the Helix server, we can't deliver content over port 80 using the Wowza streaming server. So we have to listen on that particular address on port 80, and then we're delivering a lot of this content over port 80 through IIS. It's not a huge amount of content that's done in that way. It's more legacy stuff, which I'll come onto in the next slide, but we have to do that because Wowza doesn't work in that way. Wowza will deliver the content for iOS devices through the Wowza server, but it does it through the port 1935, which you'll have open anyway because you're already doing flash streaming. So it's effectively, it's an extra binding or an extra sort of, how would you describe it, Dave? Is it a binding? It is a binding, isn't it? Yeah, it's an extra binding that's added to IIS. What then happens is that if you've got kind of legacy stuff that's being downloaded, that will be downloaded from IIS. If there's legacy audio content, we were delivering audio content over HTTP, it will be delivered by IIS. Same for browser-based HTML5 content. And then all of the sort of the true streaming content, so to speak, will be delivered through Wowza. So new audio content will deliver over RTMP. RTSP, which is to things like Android, would be delivered through Wowza. And then what we term as HLS, which is the kind of the iOS streaming, that's done through Wowza, as well as your kind of traditional Flash streaming done through Wowza as well. Question on Flash to the audience. So who here today has had issues with Flash in a browser on your kind of desktop estate? Does it still work, or is there sort of any restrictions on it working? Who's had problems? Yeah. Okay. With Flash. Okay, specifically. Yeah, because I just the reason why I'm asking is that Firefox in particular has been quite aggressive at kind of trying to get rid of Flash. Again, my opinion, but yeah, it seems like it's a little bit one of those sort of things where you just want to kill it off, but they're not doing a particularly good job on the HTML5 side anyway. We use the JW player. We'll continue to use the JW player in our product. So this has Flash with HTML5 fallback anyway. So it's kind of nothing to worry about. We're effectively doing the same thing, but we'd sort of have a bit more of a dependency on IIS really, because before the Helix server was doing a lot of the streaming over HTTP, and Wowza just doesn't have that functionality. It has a lot more stuff to it, but it doesn't have that functionality. Don't ask me why. It's not something that I know, but yeah, they don't have it.